Hi there, my name is Whitney George. I'm a composer and conductor based in New York City and the artistic director of a new music ensemble called the Curiosity Cabinet. I am so pleased today to get to interview three different composers, all of who are aligned with the operatic medium and writing works for integrated theater. Those composers are Anne LeBaron, Jasmine Barnes, and Stephanie Leotsakos. They are all three brilliant individuals. I am so pleased that I got to spend the afternoon talking to all three of them. Um, I hope you enjoy the three interviews to follow that are integrated with their with examples of their work. I so encourage you after you watch this segment to check out the catalog of each of these composers in more depth. They have an abundance of works, and all of them are really worthy of attention. So I hope you enjoy this segment by Composers Now, Composers on Composers. So without further ado. I want to talk mainly about opera and works of integrated theater today, and I have a good number of questions I want to ask you, both about your pieces and your creative process. When undertaking a huge work like an opera, a lot of people don't even think about like where in the world do you start with something like that? How do you collect your musical materials? How do you think about things like form and structure? Aside from its theatrical sensibilities, opera is one of the largest musical forms that exists, and specifically for younger composers, and they'll definitely be tuning into this video. How do you tackle such a daunting form? And what would you say about kind of the approach to
Mhm.
opera as it differs from other works?
Right, yes. Well, it takes me back to my first opera, which is called the E and O line, meaning standing for Eurydice and Orpheus. We all write these Orphic operas, right? But mine was set in the Mississippi Delta, and it treated Eurydice as a woman who had agency. Um, And I wrote it for a jazz band, like a rhythm band, and then a kind of brass and minimal strings. So where I'm going with this is, I would advise composers who are starting out to start small. I suppose you could call mine a jazz electronics, because electronics played a big part, chamber opera. But if you go back to thinking about chamber opera instead of large scale, let's pull it in. Probably the best example would be, or one of the best examples would be Benjamin Britten's Turn of the Screw. 13 instrumentalists, right? So that's a quintessential chamber opera. Another one that comes to my mind would be Erwartung, Schoenberg's Erwartung, a monodrama, not a chamber opera, actually, because it's long. No, excuse me, it's not long. The orchestra is large. It's 30 minutes long, so short. And then if you want to go to more of an extreme, Judith Weir's Weir opera King Harold's Saga, for one singer singing something like, I don't know how many parts, 8 or 9 different roles.
Well,
One singer, 10 minutes long.
I love that.
Extraordinary.
Ah,
So you can go down, and start small, maybe not that small. And I tend not to think pragmatically. I think dreaming, like I dream something up. And I don't allow myself to hear, no, you can't do this, or to tell myself that's impossible. Of course, there's always a little chattering voice. So one example of this is my current undertaking that I've finished, but we're along the road to production somewhere. And this piece is this opera. It's my latest. It's called LSD, Huxley's Last Trip. It's about LSD, how it was discovered, what happened in this country, in America, in the middle of last century. This is kind of historical, but Aldous Huxley forms a through line throughout the opera.
To make this mundane world sublime, take half a gram of Phanerotime. To sink in hell was so angelic, you'll need a pinch of psychedelic.
I only take his LSD in the lab where it's safe. Everything under control, no chance of an overdose. It started, as a mold, or rather a fungus on rye. It caught in St. Anthony's fire, made people learn to die.
And the reason it is so impractical is I had the idea to bring in some microtonal instruments that were built by Harry Partch, a maverick American composer. Not just microtonal, not just quarter tone, but instruments that are basically tuned 43 tones to the octave.
Yeah.
And each one requires its own musical template. So in order to write for these instruments, one has to actually live with them.
Yeah.
Which I was able to do here in LA. There are only 3 instrumentariums in the world. One in LA, one that used to be in New York where I first learned about the instruments, and then went to Seattle and is now in San Diego. Okay. And the third set is in Germany, in Frankfurt, with Musik Fabrik, the ensemble.
Ah, amazing.
So just to say that this opera not only has those instruments plus a chamber ensemble of Western instruments, but it requires 11 singers, triple and double and triple cast. Meanwhile, there are 3 librettists, Gerhard Stern, a poet who just died earlier this year, Ed Rosenfeld, who worked in intelligence, he died a few years ago, and me. They were wonderful. They became really special friends. But when they approached me to do this opera, which was at that time a screenplay, I said, I have to be one of the librettists because this is not a libretto. And neither one of them had ever been to an opera. So I jumped at it because of the subject matter, not because...
So you feel that it is representative of your most current work, or do you kind of let it kind of sit?
It's such an interesting question. I'm a terrible person at holding on and not letting go because I know it can always be better. And so I have a whole pile of not just this, but pieces that I need to get back into and make them as perfect as they can be. That takes years. For this one, for the LSD opera, yes, I always try to tighten up the scenes after they've been publicly performed, which we did last year. And I think, oh, this goes on too long. I'm going to cut it or I'm going to change it. For instance, I want to have more music for the parch instruments because they're so difficult to write for. And when you're working toward a deadline, I'm sorry, but I know how to write. It's not that I know how to write, I can write more quickly for the Western instruments. So I feel that the parch instruments need to have more of a place. So yes, it's finished, but of course, when I do have a production lined up, I will go back, or even before then, and improve it in these ways.
How has collaboration in general either inspired your creative process or has it at times been a hindrance?
Yeah, it's when I read this quote, I just it's such a fraught question for me because I have had some disasters with collaborators, and I have had some lifelong friendships with collaborators. I find that when a collaboration gels, all of the people, all of the creators are respectful of one another and of one another's areas of expertise. And that the collaborators actually discover in a positive way, generative ways of working together. But difficulties can arise when, say, a writer comes into a project and cannot or will not, is not willing to learn about another form that is based in time. Or here's another example. The librettist might be wonderful, but the director who comes on may have tensions with the librettist.
Sure.
And the composer is caught in the middle. The composer adores both, wants to work with both, but they're like, ugh, right? And the composer has to decide
Yeah.
which way to go.
Yeah.
So I've been trapped in all of these situations. I have to say that to balance all of that, all of the gnashing of teeth, to balance it, that the most successful collaborations are so joyful that those experiences pretty much eclipse
Yeah.
the projects that have suffered for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They happen.
Yeah.
The most important thing I can tell all younger composers, all composers should know this, is to have your agreement in writing, signed, sealed, and delivered.
Yeah. I have to
Yeah.
ask, opera, because it's such a visual medium, I'm curious if, you experience music visually or if you're sort of, if you experience music outside of just how it sounds, or are you inspired by visuals in general?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say that visuals are that some of my works, you kind of touch on this, are the titles are seeded by visual by paintings. I have one piece that I wrote. It was a from commission for harp and flute, and I was having trouble with the title, although the music was inspired by Japanese no drama, the music for
Cool.
Japanese
Yeah.
no theater. And I was at that time, that was in the 80s. I lived in Washington, D.C. And somehow I came across the Museum of Women in the Arts had an exhibit, the first one in this country, of paintings by Remedios Varo, the great Mexican surrealist painter. And in that exhibit, I saw the painting that looked like what I had written. So it's kind of coming from the other side, right? That
Yeah.
painting was called Solar Music,
Cool.
and it's where you see a woman. I won't describe the whole painting, but what really struck me is this woman is bowing the rays of the sun. The sun is coming down into a forest, and there are rays, like, rays of the sun. And she stands there in this great forest, and she's bowing one of the rays. Now, this is what I've done with my harp. I'm a harpist. Forever is I use bows. And I wrote them in this piece, and I've never seen any music that was written for bowed harp, so I developed notation for it. So you can see this painting was very special, and I just took the title of the painting, which is Solar Music, Music of the Sun, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's one way that I've worked with visuals. Another one I came across was I had written a piece, or I was writing a piece for flute and electronics, solo flute and electronics, very dramatic work, um, based in some South American Peruvian folk song at the beginning. And I was at the time working in Washington, D.C. as an artist in residence, and one of my organizations was the Children's Museum. Well, they had an exhibit of a man's work. His last name is Amaringo, who specialized in painting hallucinations that people have when they take ayahuasca.
cool.
And can you imagine at the Children's Museum?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So one of the paintings showed this gigantic, enormous snake in the jungle. And the snake was called Sachamama, which translates as Mother of the Jungle. This Mother of the Jungle, if she is disturbed, she swallows everything in her path.
Huh.
I loved the strength of that.
Yeah.
And somehow it spoke to me that my piece should be titled Sachamama.
Oh,
And so I used the title. But I want to say that how I experience music is viscerally and multisensorially, if that's a word. And also, I find that I'm strongly influenced by scent, the sense of smell. And I find extraordinary parallels between perfumery, which I've studied, and music. So I've been writing and thinking about music for years that explore the chemistry and the emotionality of scent.
we talked a little bit about visual arts, but are there things like sculptures or design or poetry or film or like a book that you're currently reading that you find particularly like moved by? Is there something that like kind of, lights that fire for you?
Yes, I want to share a couple of things with you. I'm always reading books, and yes, I mean, sometimes you don't know if it's lighting a fire. Sometimes it just seeps into your
Sure.
subconscious. And I read fiction, I read nonfiction. But when I was thinking about this, I want to share something about an obscure composer that I discovered going through some old LPs here at my home. This one was produced by David Behrman, who is a big name in New York,
Mhm.
or used to be. It's called Music of Our Time, New Music in Quarter Tones. And it was a work by someone I have never heard of.
Sure.
Uh, his name is Calvin Hampton.
Okay.
He wrote Triple Play for On Martineau, which is a keyboard that sounds like a theremin, right?
Cool.
Um, on Martineau and two pianos. It just grabbed me. It had this extraordinary sensuality and sort of a kaleidoscopic reality. It really special, and it's only 7 minutes long. So that piece, I thought, got to find a way to get it off the LP and onto something so that it's easier to share with people. And then I last week was at the Hammer Museum. You know the Hammer Museum connected to UCLA. They had a fantastic exhibit called Performance on Paper. And I won't go into what it was about, but it was a cross section of artists, dancers, and composers and musicians,
Mhm.
all of whom made work on paper. There
Cool.
was a conceptual art piece by an LA-based artist named Alan Ruppersberg
Mhm.
called Great Speckled Bird. You can look it up, Great Speckled Bird. This is a work of art. And what he did is he took Americana lyrics from old sheet music,
Mhm.
which are pretty, kind of schlocky lyrics, right? And they were written by hand on dozens of old vintage hotel stationery
Cool.
and mounted across one wall, mounted on an unrolled piano roll.
Ah,
So definitely multi-layered, nostalgic, making a case for conceptual work. You could just stand there. The the lyrics were handwritten
yeah.
on each vintage stationery and then on a piano roll, which played a real tune.
You're
Uh,
right.
and then they had everything where you could, on your phone, you could listen to the tune. So that was very striking to
Cool.
me to
Yeah.
see and think about.
Sure.
So I began noticing the sound of vacuum cleaners back in my maybe 30s or 40s and thinking they have so many musical possibilities. What can I do with this? You know,
Sure.
it's like having trained as an electronic composer with the analog system in the Columbia Princeton studio. I started collecting the sounds and actually doing things like feeding nails into vacuum cleaners that I found that were homeless on the street. And eventually, I won't go into all the nitty-gritty of how this happened, but eventually, that over many years, that coalesced into um, a monodrama
Yeah.
called Suction, that is spelled Sucktion, which relies heavily on altered sounds of vacuum cleaners.
Mhm.
Now, this opera also is kind of a take on how women lived as housewives back in those bad old days when many women would take Valium because the boredom was so, you know.
Yes.
And it starts in that way. But
Honey, I'm home. Such a mess. Jesus. The hell do you?
Leave me. Want me. Take me. Leave me. Throw me.
Damn. Many sorries for anniversary. Certainly you understand.
A vacuum cleaner. This sucks. Vibration speeds 25. Rotation speeds 25.
Honey, how's the house clean? Vacuum.
but then it progresses, the opera does, into a place where she receives a vacuum cleaner as a present, and her husband isn't around, he's always traveling. And so she falls in love with it and eventually becomes it. In other words, they don't have a baby, but
Sure. Yeah, 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 yeah,
but
yeah.
this is a kind of cyborg. I
Yeah,
could call it a cyborg opera.
I like that.
And it's funny, but it's sad at the same time. Uh,
Is that your favorite role that you've written, or is there something that is another kind of operatic role that holds a closer place in your heart? Not to play favorites with your creative work, but is there something that means a lot to you in that respect?
yeah, I thought about this, and what kept coming up to the top of all the pieces and the characters I've lived with is Pope Joan.
Okay.
Pope Joan is a dance opera that I wrote to lyrics by the incredible poet Enid Shomer. And she wrote 5 stanzas of poems that were purportedly found on the body of Pope Joan after she was stoned to death. Why was she stoned to death? This woman disguised herself as a man, was brilliant. We're talking about the ninth century,
Mm-hmm.
brilliant intellect, and became Pope
Yeah.
for 5 years, I believe. And during a papal procession, she gave birth. She also had a lover on the side. And she gave birth and she was stoned.
Damn.
Um, and so living her life through the poems that described her trajectory, described the care she had for her baby, um, that she knew would be born, and described the stoning. I had to enter into her reality in a very, I would say, intimate way. And that's probably why she comes up as the character. I forget the question, but
Maybe the person who's kind of most special or resonated
yeah,
right
the
now.
most most
Yeah.
yes. And I also think that the music to me, I can listen to this music and be moved by it, even though I wrote it. That's often not the case.
Sure.
Often I don't want to hear my music anymore because I've lived with it for so long. But this one occupies a pretty special territory.
To that effect, how would you say you approach writing an opera? How does this kind of work differ from your works of absolute music, or even things that have programmatic inclinations but are definitely not operas?
Yeah, I love this question because like I was someone who loved opera as a performer of it first, and then was like, oh wait, oh, I want to write this because I had, particular problems with the canon. That's another story. But but my approach to like starting to write opera, I had to start to think of opera as a group, like writing for nouns, like literally writing for a person, a place, a thing, or an idea.
Yeah.
And like in structuring my writing in that kind of way where I'm like, okay, I need music to develop this character, this person. I need music to develop this place that they are in, and what correlation is this place affecting that character. I need music to um, the a thing, an object. Maybe it's their letter reading, and we hear all types of arias that gear to letter reading and how different the response would be in that sort of sense. And then an idea. Maybe they're dreaming of something. Maybe it's something that they're taking their physical body out of that place that they're singing about, or whatever the case, and they're dreaming of somewhere else. Once I started to think of it that way, it just got so much easier to kind of just structure it. That was just the hardest part for me. I think no, I take that back. The hardest part for me was Russet, because there was this idea that conversation needed. I don't know. When I would listen to opera, and when I learned opera, it was like Russet, typically in modern opera, as opposed to like opera of yore, um, is it's just so much. It's so different. Like Mozart operas would have more of a drone type of sound to Russet, where it might have chord settings, and you just arrive to a place. But a modern opera now kind of gears towards natural speech and emotions that tie with natural speech, and so that kind of thought process through it. I was speaking with a mentor of mine. He was like, write it like a song, write it like a song, like treat everything like a song. It's just that you'll give more emphasis in arias on longer vowels in arias than you would in recitative. So yeah, that's like that. Yeah, that's kind of how I structure it.
You agree that when you're committing yourself to an opera, it's more about kind of making it's not all about it. Like, of course, you're going to be inspired and etc. But like, it's
Right.
really kind of about putting in the right, like the number of hours and like the
Yes.
dedication to the craft, right?
Oh, it takes years, literally. And I think that's something that I try to stress to anyone that's like, oh yeah, I want to write an opera. I'm like, prepare for your life to be taken over by
Yeah,
the art form. Like you are going to live, sleep, breathe, and all types of other things. Opera, because it's just, I mean, and then the story lives with you so much that you end up knowing the libretto better than your librettist if you didn't write your own libretto. But like, you end up knowing it better than them because you have lived with those characters for so long and developing and crafting musical ideas around each of these characters, the place, like same thing with the nouns, crafting things around these nouns takes time,
yeah,
and making sure it sounds cohesive together is another thing that takes time. And then the editing process and the revisions, and oh my gosh, and several eyes on it.
yeah,
Yeah. But I
yeah,
say asking for help is probably the best thing you could do in opera, is not work in a silo. Do ask for help. Like, especially because it's such a collaborative process, you have many people that will be interested in the development of the work. So it's like, can I ask your opinion on this thing? And be okay with whatever it is, because whatever the answer is will still inform the work being better.
sure,
Even if you don't really agree with what they said. There's something in it that you can always take from it and develop the work. Because like I always feel your ego should never get in the way of the work, ever. And it's never about like, oh, but that's what I wanted to write here. It's like the story wants to be a thing. The opera wants to be a thing, and it's calling out for different things.
yeah,
And when you start making egotistical thoughts towards it, you squeeze the opera by the throat.
yeah. I agree. I think there's also something inherently like really difficult about it.
Hmm.
Like, funny that you mentioned ego because Anne LeBaron and I were talking about ego quite a bit, and this idea of ego probably being the worst enemy of fruitful collaboration.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So, because opera is inherently a collaborative art form, like, how do you collaborate with like the librettist?
I
And
totally, so for me at first, I thought it was music than words. That was when I first started. And as I kind of wrote more and more, I was like, it's actually words and then music. That works for me too. It
yeah,
actually inspires me a lot more to get to the musical ideas when I'm, looking at the text, when I'm
yeah,
making sure that I'm internalizing the text.
right.
So like for me, yeah, I have to absorb the words first.
Yeah,
And I do things chronologically. I know not everyone does that with opera. Some people like will do like the beginning and the end, or I typically have to like I have to do it chronologically because I have to live with those characters through that story, and I can't say, oh yeah, this is how they'll feel at the end if I didn't feel through all of the things with them. Like I don't know, it's just such a feeling. art form, it is all about feeling. It's about making other people feel. And it may not be in the same kind of way. Like feelings come in multiple forms and in multiple digested ways for an audience. But I mean, we're not necessarily writing for the audience per se, but we are in a way.
Yeah.
Like this idea that like, yeah, okay, yeah, we want people to like the work, but like ultimately it's about does the does the work feel complete? Does
Yeah.
it feel succinct? Do the text and the music make sense together?
Yeah.
Like, you know, how collaborative is this process? Like, is it a clean collaboration? And
Yeah.
you can always tell by the end. You're like, oh,
Dive right in. Oh, ah! Dive right in. Networking begin.
Only to meet you,
When will you be bringing out more of the crab cakes? I'm rather famished.
Sir, I think you're confused. I don't work here.
Oh! I just... Oh! Ah! Wow! Oh! Dive right in. Networking begin.
Nice to make you acquainted.
I heard you're a composer.
Composer and singer.
Ah! So you dabble in jazz, I suppose.
I mean, yes, but
What do you think of the rumors that Shakespeare himself could have been a black man?
do we always need to stand so
I mean, that's what makes the canon unquestionably stand the test of time. Don't you think?
I'm gonna need something stronger than this. I need a drink.
Okay, well, we're going to talk more about this Shakespeare.
So in the beginning, I did a lot of my own libretto. As I've met more librettists and people that write words for a living, I'm like, yeah, it would be better for you to do that. You can have it. Like, please take this a cup away from me. But like,
Yeah.
um, it collaboration is something I just truly hold dear in this art form, especially. But just writing in general, I love collaborating. I love collaboration, and yeah, it's been a thing where collaboration is the birthplace for a lot of ideas that even comes in opera. Like I have a favorite collaborator of mine that now I've written. No, we've only written one opera together, but we've written like a lot of other things together. We're also working on another opera together. Um, so it's like that kind of inspiration that comes from collaboration, where we'll be chilling and be like, what would be a cool opera? We'll just bounce a abstract idea and then we'll develop it together just
Yeah.
from like the meeting of the minds. And oh, that's a lie. We wrote two operas together. We've written two operas together.
I love
There is a shorthand that we have
Yeah.
that I don't have to explain why I'm thinking something
Yeah.
and just say it. And she's like, yeah, I get it. I understand it fully. And I'm like,
Cool.
really? And
Yeah.
then like, yeah, she understands fully what I'm talking about and vice versa. And I think because the process is such a long and strenuous process, that it's good to have people that you don't have to spend a long part of that just explaining yourself.
Yeah.
Um, yes, there's explanation that needs to happen to make the work succinct, but like actually, we wrote the opera that I was missing in my mind for whatever reason. Is called On My Mind that we actually wrote based on how we met.
Cute.
Yeah, and so like that kind of idea, those kind of it's a short opera. It's like a 20-minute opera, but it's really an abstract form of how we met, where it's like we met in this classical music space
Yeah.
where we're two Black women in a classical music space where you already know it is rare. It's
Yeah.
not, you don't see it that often. And then when you're in a lot of these like opera conference type of spaces, there's this like pressure to network and this pressure
Yeah.
to be someone that you're not. And it was, and so we were like, oh, it was just refreshing to meet someone that is similar to me in any way. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's what that opera was about. But like it it fueled like the meeting of the minds fueled inspiration for new things and more ideas. And I love that. Like I just think the art deserves fresh ideas. I think right now the industry is so on a push for adaptations. It's like adapt this book, adapt this movie, adapt this play, and because there's this idea that we cannot come up with ideas that will sustain the art form. And yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. We totally can.
Yeah. I
And the
mean,
opera's
Can I? Will when they ask me to stay.
approachability to musical theater that sometimes opera doesn't necessarily achieve to today's modern average listener. Like, I try to think of everything in the way that I came to classical music. I came pretty late to classical music, and so this kind of thought process that like most of the time in opera and classical spaces, you'll meet people that are like, oh yeah, I remember seeing my first opera when I was 5. And like and my dad was a concert master of,
Sure.
right? You like this like there's this like it's a club here
Yeah.
and you can only get in if you know the right people kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas musical theater does not have that kind of you can't come listen to this if you don't know it kind of attitude, if that makes sense. Don't get me wrong, there are some diehards. There are some
Oh, for sure.
in musical theater that would be like, you can't come here. But the reality is it's open to everyone. And I think that's why they're able to do such long tours
Yeah.
and fill seats and, have all these different things because there's an approachability to the music, let alone the stories that are being offered as well
Yeah.
that I think classical music really could learn from. Opera could learn from the model of musical theater as the people's art form, right? Like, and that's how opera was started. It was the people's art form. It was,
Yeah.
ideally, in Western European
Yeah. Yeah.
tradition, I mean, it started in people's houses where they would
Yeah.
gather people together and act out, what story they're working on the piano or whatever they had going on. They would bring people together, and it was always about community building. And I think that is something that we could really get back to. Like, it is about community building.
Yeah.
And what does that sound like? And I'm not saying that people have to gear their music to only things that are accessible, right? Because
Yeah.
I think have more faith in your audience that they could also tackle things that are not necessarily accessible, but still gain the story if
Yeah.
that's at the forefront.
What are you trying to say with your music currently then that you feel is like a topical thing of the now?
Oh man, honestly, okay, I feel like my music right now is gearing to rebellion.
Yeah.
I feel like a rebel in many spaces, particularly in our art form, but like outside of that too, like just the state of the country right now is kind of in shambles. Like we're kind of on a sinking ship altogether.
Yeah.
And it I want to write about it. Like I think about what Nina Simone said about, art should reflect the artist should write art that reflects the times. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I truly believe that. Like I mean, who's going to tell it when we're not here? Who's going to say what happened right now when we're not here? And like, and what does that look like? So I actually have a Kennedy Center premiere like later this year. Hear me out. I didn't wanna, I didn't, and it still might not happen because honestly, we kind of are like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I was like, okay, what can I do that's the most rebellious thing? Like, what text could I set that is like the
Sure.
most like forget this place kind
Yeah.
of, um, and so I decided to set Langston Hughes' poem called "Let America Be America Again," which I think already by
Yeah.
title is
That's
nuts.
fantastic.
Already it's like, and then like, mind you, this poem is written like 100 years ago, and it still
Yeah.
applies. It
Yeah.
still fully applies. Like, he has like this sarcastic kind of like heroic and patriotic kind of like text, and then it has these like small stanzas in between that says like America was never America to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And like, it's like this part that's like to build a homeland of the free. And he's like, the free? Who said the free? Not
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Surely not me. And I'm like, that is what we need to be talking about now. Mind you, I'm merging worlds. Like I'm merging something that happened 100 years ago and bringing it to
Yes.
now. But it's important because it's like it's sad that we're still going to do the same things. And I want to talk about that in my art. Like
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time that I was like, I don't want to talk about, unfortunately, I hate to say it like this, but I don't want my full identity in classical music to be like centered in my blackness.
Sure.
And at some point, I thought maybe that was going to be the case. Um, but now I find it like an honor to do so because who's
Yeah.
going to tell these stories
Yeah.
when we're long gone, when we're all gone. Like who's gonna be able to speak for like the least of us all? Like who's gonna be able to speak for those that are going through, I mean, women, like
Child I see.
How do you think about like collecting your musical materials? How do you think about form and structure or the shape of a work overall?
Well, I have not written an opera as large as your last one, Whitney, so you can speak on the longer form. I've written a couple of operas, and they've all been between 30 minutes and an hour. And the 30 minutes I call an opera miniature, because for opera, I really do feel like that's a miniature. But between those two operas, I find that no matter the length, that it still takes a lot of time to write. And so collecting materials is a constant um, thing for me. I'm constantly thinking about what could situationally work on stage or what could maybe challenge some more traditional opera, um, I guess, traditions.
Sure.
And I think we'll get into that. That's more of where I'm headed now with opera. But I started off writing my take in more of a traditional opera sphere. So the two that I've composed have been one is called OMG, and that's, using some accent interesting instruments, but also standard instrumentation, small chamber work of an hour long. And the other one has currently been written for piano and three vocalists, the 30-minute long one, but it will be orchestrated a little bit out, I think, to a chamber orchestration because I want it to be doable. Like, we want our works to be produced. So, scale, I mean, opera could be any scale.
Sure.
It could be miniature, it could be huge, and the form and structure of it just comes from the ideas itself for me.
You
Yeah, absolutely. I brought a little collection here of them for y'all to see. I'm currently working in this bigger one. I ran out of space on my mini Baron writer.
Oh, very cool.
So we're working out of tiny spaces, and I find that more impactful to even keep larger, complex works grounded and situated in a smaller space. So
Okay.
I do have some pictures actually to share. Let me share screen here so that you can see some of the inside of my notebooks
Yes.
that really kind of give you a glimpse into what it might look like for me.
Yeah.
These are some pictures from the notebook that I have here for my first opera, where I started conceptualizing the space that I was going to perform it first on. And this was my thesis opera at Princeton during my undergrad. So I was lucky that I knew the um, the auditorium I was going to produce it in, and I knew a sense of size, and therefore could really start off with that concept from the beginning. And that's what you're seeing here. Then this pretty much gives you form and structure for the first opera. I was very inspired by this symbol down here, which is the flower of life symbol, but it really has a lot of correlation with early Christian history as well. And that's what you see here, these Greek letters. I'm half Greek and Colombian, so I was kind of diving into my heritage as well. And those letters up top form an acronym that spell that stand for Isus Christos Theouios Sotir, ichthys, which also means fish. So that's where we get the Jesus fish from.
Okay.
And I was discovering all of that in these like tiny space notebooks and then thinking, okay, how can this form the scenes of the opera? So that's up there. On this next page, I was doodling down here with staging. I felt like the bodies on stage could represent those letters, also dealing with the symbology. So this is the type of stuff you'll see in my notebooks, and this is like 10 years ago now. Here again is the stage. I'm thinking about reference points, where how characters are going to connect, and just notes to self about life. Like living life helps me collect my operatic material.
OMG, did you end up conducting this as well?
Yes, I did. I ended up conducting it, which was my first time conducting an opera.
Gosh, really? That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
So
There
like,
was
yeah,
there was no time. I mean, you know better than anyone how crunched for time you get when you're in production. I had student volunteers performing in this opera, and everyone's busy. I think I was still giving out drafts of upcoming scenes as we were rehearsing earlier scenes and putting it together. And I did everything from staging to conducting just because there was no time for someone else to learn it. So it's like step up. And I love to do it. I wanted to conduct anyway. So I did. And it started me on a whole path of feeling empowered to be able to wear many hats and contribute to all sectors of the collaborative process.
yeah, I feel
I agree with you. I really find that the younger generation is absolutely someone like a populace of people that I really care about. I really enjoy teaching,
yeah.
working with, and I feel that I'm still in touch with my inner child, and that's what helps my creative spirit. I'm having conversations with her, and that she can be having conversations with other kids too. We're all just grown-up kids, and I'm very sad when I feel that adults may have disconnected from their inner child. I feel that it's a really healthy human experience to remember not just what childhood felt like, but what it felt like to be a child.
Yeah.
So I do think about their lens a lot. I do find myself writing for my own inner child and other children, and that seems to have been something that I've put into a lot of my work so far, from OMG, which is, about the story of a family, um, traversing time periods, to my second opera, which was Young Goodman Brown, a traveling story um, that could be taken to strange places and seen by audiences who maybe have not seen opera before. And that was explicitly what the commission was about by the Perspective Collective. When they asked me, they said, we want to take new opera to weird places.
Like say you're interested in like Harry Parch, like making your own instrument. Like how do you even start?
Oh,
You know what I
I
mean?
got you. I got you. Okay, I'm gonna get up for a second. I would recommend them to any person who wants to learn to tinker. It's a makey kit, and it's handheld size. This was invented by two MIT Media Lab students,
Yeah,
and it is such an easy access way to turn anything into basically a user interface.
cool.
Graphite from pencils is a conductor. So I do a lot of stuff. I make a lot of my new inventions with conductive materials because our bodies close a circuit and conduct. I'm sorry, the second iteration, and it rolls out like this.
Cool.
It's made of paper, just paper. I origamied
What?
together. Yeah, and these are strips of copper tape
Okay.
um, that then we hooked up to basically a Raspberry Pi and coded a little bit. But Makey is like introductory coding. It's like coding for babies, and they already have like apps on their website that you can try. If you go to you'll see in my socials later on, my Notes by Stephanie website introduces a lot of these cool things and leads to the Makey Makey, how you can get one and how you can play with their apps. But you could turn a, a little note card,
Yeah.
draw pictures on it, connect the alligator clips to it, and make it make sound.
Yeah.
We have so much more access now, and I think that's really important for people to know because as long as you have curiosity and you are resourceful, you can find a way. And it's infinite. Like I think really the barrier is yourself, if there is a barrier at all. Um,
Sure.
so, it has taken a long time. I've had to learn patience as well because something may not work, but you can essentially model a new instrument out of like recycling, I don't know, jugs, and then learn something about sound and music and physics and just the joy of making through that process before it becomes anything that's like manufactured. Um,
Sure.
and kids can do that. So I strongly, strongly believe that kids are capable of doing way more than I think adults typically give them credit for,
Sure.
including um, music theory concepts. I teach pretty high level theory at a very basic level, and they don't even know that they're doing that theory because it just gets learned in a fun, playful way. I've been
Sure.
making games, I have games in development too. So why not? You can see that I'm a big kid.
How do you use collaboration outside of opera in your creative process? Like, is it a hindrance or does it open up a bunch of doors? What are your kind of thoughts about that?
The short answer is I feel like it opens doors. Like collaboration from any walks of life can really contribute to both my operatic and absolute music craft, because I approach music the same way. So for me, it's really one and the same. Um, Although, typically we understand that there's story and arc and characters and people singing those characters in opera. Um, musicians, Singers are musicians,
Yeah.
and I treat instrumentalists the same way. And being one, both an instrumentalist and a singer, I am thinking about breath when I play violin, and I'm thinking about legato in both situations as a singer and violinist. So every time I collaborate, I use my prior knowledge or other skills to really kind of give another angle or amplify an angle to what I'm trying to communicate. And that could go for the creative process or that could go for the practical like logistics. So collaboration has been a huge part of my making process, both implicitly and explicitly.
Yeah.
Even when I'm writing all by my lonesome, it doesn't I feel like I'm almost collaborating with my instrument that I'm playing with, or the new tech that I'm playing with,
Yeah.
or I'm collaborating with other people.
Carmen, aren't you pleased to see me?
No, I'm not. I'm not late. Faith kept me back a while. Too far, too far. My father never went on such an errand, nor his father before him. We have been a race of honest men and Christians. Don't laugh at me. Don't laugh at me. Who's there? Chicken cooking, Reverend. Faith, not faith. Don't laugh at me. Who's there? Who's there?
The idea that we can't like hear like the subtitles with the devil, but we don't, that was fantastic. I'm there for that. That was awesome. Very,
Yeah.
very cool.
And you know, it was really fun making the electronic tape track. It was inside the bell of the piano, like me playing with the strings. So this idea that the devil is completely embodied by the piano
Cool.
and is not tied to range, like the devil is speaking in high and low ranges and in full ranges of the spectrum, and can swallow the audience, like engulf in sound or become just the person he's interacting with.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of that aspect of how I solved that. Came from resourcefulness. How did I solve needing to have the devil as a character in this opera, but only having three singers and one male singer? Yeah, I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, I have
Yeah.
four characters and three singers.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the creative solution, and it's my favorite part. It's my favorite part of the
Ah.
making process.
Yeah, this idea that like constraints breed creativity, right? And like your next big project that you have in the works when it comes to opera, and what kind of makes this a little different than your current or your past projects.
Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit earlier, but I can show you music
That'd be
um,
cool.
that introduces the sound world I'm kind of thinking of now.
Yeah.
Um, this this opera is the mystical
Yeah.
one about the cycle of life
Yeah.
with that I include the tonnets with, but I have written what I'm calling an aria.
Cool.
I'm calling it that
Yeah. Yeah.
because I think this is going to open the opera,
Cool.
and this aria is called Hyacinth, and this is the voice of the creation mother. I find it hard to stop that one because it helps me breathe.
Yeah. There's a strong sense of breath even when before the voice enters, which is very, very, very cool. That's very, very neat.
And that's my exploring with every single sound recorded. Uh, it was very experimental recording, was with my violin or my body. Like
Yeah,
swooshy sounds was me doing this gesture.
cool.
And like that can be sound that you use. So it was a really fun exploratory sound world to start building. And now I think I know what direction I'm taking for this new opera.